Before we begin, thank you very much to Kenny the Trend for joining my Patreon campaign. Very appreciated. Thank you very much. We've had a few more added to the list. It is a valiant effort you guys have kept up with to keep the daily shout-outs going. I do really appreciate it. You know you're going to run out eventually, right? Like, there's no way this is going to continue infinitely. Eventually, I'm going to get to do a normal intro with no shout-outs. It's a matter of time, but I appreciate everyone's generosity to hold it off as long as possible. It's actually been fun watching, like, not gonna do that. Nope, not gonna get a shout out. Nope, there's another shout out. Thank you guys. You've made it very entertaining to do this. Hopefully this is entertaining because this is gonna be a traditional kind of top 10 list. I don't really have it's not a here's 10 because here's 10 is just literally like here's 10 things. No. This is like more traditional top 10. I am ranking things from 10 to 1. But I'm only doing it this way because there's really only 10 good examples of today's subject, and that is Megatron's alt modes. Now, obviously, we did a whole video about all the things Megatron has turned into over the years. It is everything from, your traditional like cars, basic things Transformers always turn into, to like Sega Genesis and Bear Bricks. So it's been all over the place for Megs, but we're here to determine what's his best alt mode. What are the best things for Megatron to turn into? And when I whittled down all the weird things that really didn't fit in, Sega Genesis, shoe, alligator, there's only a few things left that really merit discussion. So let's go with that. So at number 10 on the list, I am starting it off with your standard humble jet, whether that is Cybertronian or whether that is real world. Either way, it is the jet, which is kind of the de facto default Decepticon alt mode, to the point where I feel like Megatron taking on a jet form is kind of weak. Cybertronian jets do have an advantage over, just your standard Seekers, but I feel like, even especially in G1, it just felt like so many Decepticons were aerial vehicles or jets, especially, that it just kind of felt old hat, and it, to me, there's a part of me that never makes sense, because in G1, Decepticons can fly. So maybe it makes sense that a lot of them are aerial, but they also don't need to be aerial. But even when series that don't have that as a Decepticon default, jets are still the most common one by far. So, I don't know. For me, a jet is kind of a weak Megatron alt mode, even though it's one that appears a lot. It appeared in Energon, appeared in Machine Wars, and obviously here in The Last Knight, which is a cool looking jet. But it just doesn't seem like it suits Megatron, really. Not to me, anyway. We go up the list, we go up to number 9. Let's see if I can give you a little teaser. Oh, right. This is the one where a lot of people are going to check out of this video. I'm expecting that after the 4-minute mark, people are just going to plummet off of this video, because here's the hot take. I think this is not any higher than number 9. It is classic. The original Walther P-38 gun. Okay, it's a classic alt mode for Megatron. It's his original alt mode. Okay. Can we acknowledge that it's a really dumb alt mode? Can we acknowledge that? It's not like a spy device like turning into a cassette recorder like Soundwave. So, it doesn't work for real infiltration, really. I mean, you could, but, that's a weird thing. A gun is not something people are going to pick up and carry around, unlike a radio. No, the alt mode relies on someone else on the Decepticons wielding him as a weapon. Now, you could argue it's, headcanon for a lot of people that he's more powerful as a handgun than he is in his standard robot mode. But it still depends on trusting one of his cohorts to actually wield him and use him correctly. And most of the time, it ends up in Starscream's hands, which is not the best hands for Megatron to end up in, frankly. I'm really surprised there was never any episode that focused on Starscream tricking Megatron into alt mode and locking him there, because that would have been a really effective way of putting him out for a long time. But no, It is, again, classic, iconic. We acknowledge that it's, not the most intelligent alt mode to use. Legally, we cannot use it anymore, and I find that as Megatron has grown and evolved as a character and as a villain in a lot of fictions, I don't really miss it. I don't really miss the gun alt mode. I don't feel a need to actually do Megatron as a gun again, regardless of safety laws or sizes. I think we've moved beyond it now. We're going to talk about at least 8 ways we've moved beyond it, and that is starting with another one that is very default for Megatron, and that's the tank. As a evolution to the gun alt mode, that seems very natural. It's a big rolling cannon, right? So pretty obvious, and it's a big heavy vehicle, right? My thing is that there is already a Decepticon that's iconic for a tank, and that being Brawl. And obviously, like, a tank is not something like any one Transformer can be. We also have Blitzwing, we have Warpath, so it's also just one of those alt modes that kind of spreads out a little bit. I almost feel like Megatron as the leader of the Decepticons needs something a little bit more intimidating and a little bit more unique. Not that a tank isn't, intimidating. Let me not get that crossed. But it does feel like we've seen so many tank Megatrons. It just feels like a little bit unimaginative at this point. Though I acknowledge it's going to be his default from now on. I don't think we're going to get a G1 Megatron that is not a tank ever. Unless it's like Masterpiece style and we actually get the gun again as an adult collectible. But as far as a new incarnation of Megatron, yeah, I think tanks, it's gonna be a tank 9 times out of 10. It's not a bad alt mode for him. I mean, it's just a little bit typical is all. So as we get higher into the list, we're getting into some atypical things I think are more interesting. At number 7, I decided, let's just throw in every version of Megatron, right? Let's not stick to just G1. We've already touched on the movie, but, technically he's been a jet too. Thank you to Machine Wars. So, yeah, let's move into something else, like a TRex. Now, again, this kind of clashes with, existing characters more known for the mode, so hi, Grimlock, but it's definitely not one that's nearly as used as a tank is, so it still stands to be a little bit more unique. And when you're talking about things from the natural animal kingdom that actually existed, there's a few things as powerful and menacing as a T-Rex, especially in the 90s when we didn't know as much about them as we do now. These days, we know T-Rex is still a very ferocious creature, but more scavengerish than like a attacker. We've known a lot more about T-Rexes now that kind of indicate like they might not be as big and bad as we believe them to be, but still super cool dinosaurs and still like top of the pop culture when it comes to dinosaurs. So yeah, that suits Megatron really, really well. Right? So, okay, you can get to be a T-Rex. If Grimlock is the de facto robot T-Rex, you get to be the de facto organic T-Rex. And I think that works pretty nicely. Now, for number 6, I'm going to go to something that is actually a jet, but it's an atypical jet. In fact, I'm actually really surprised we haven't had more Transformers that use it as an alt mode, and that is your stealth bomber or your flying wing, whichever your design preference calls for. It's a super cool jet. It's a super awesome looking jet, all right? It's so different than just your standard jet fighter, and it looks way more menacing. Like, this feels like a kind of jet that Megatron should be from time to time. And I'm surprised that over the years, it just really feels like a style and a look that really hasn't been used much by Transformers. I mean, you've got maybe a holdover with Dreadwing in G2, and that's really about it, Like, then a Minicon in Armada, like, why we let such a cool-looking vehicle sit aside and we don't do anything with it? Why don't we do this as, like, a Transformer more often? Why is there no Decepticon that is just iconic for being a stealth bomber? Like, maybe that's a whole video of, like, why don't we use these vehicles more often? But yeah, I think it works well for Megatron. I think it's an upgrade over the Seekers. I think it makes him look more menacing. It fits in, kind of with the deceptive thing, with the stealth theme. And I think the robot mode could look really, really wicked if you give it the right attention. this is really nice for me. I think this works better. Now, you're still kind of in the standard jets area, but I like it a lot better than, just plain old jet, right? I think it works better than that. So, kicking off the top half of the list. This one is something more interesting because we've only seen it once, really. At least as far as Megatrons go. But I think it creates something fascinating. Amongst them. And that is going to be the truck. So we only got to see the truck from Dark of the Moon. Dark of the Moon. I get those base sequels mixed up sometimes. All right, but in Dark of the Moon, we got to see him as a truck for the first time. And it works. It's like there's something interesting about him becoming a foil to Optimus Prime, where he is actually like a more kind of like rugged, like worn down Mad Max even-esque truck, rather than your traditional like clean semi that he is in the live action movies. I think it makes an interesting parallel for them to come from the same alt mode, but also look very different in robot mode and take very different styles and attitudes with the vehicle. It's an interesting play. Like, I really do wish they had played with that more in Dark of the Moon. I wish we'd had some iteration of Megatron since that took the same idea, because I do think it's an interesting idea that you could draw some interesting parallels with. Unfortunately, we never actually got there. But it's something that, maybe in the future, maybe this is the seeds of something that some writer's going to pick up on down the road. If not, hey, I at least think it was an interesting choice for Megatron, even if the writers from the movies didn't really utilize it all that well. Number 4, we have to jump back to the Beast Wars, so obviously there's only one place to go when it comes to that. It's not the alligator, it's the dragon. So if Megatron is going to choose an alt mode that is based on an animal, why restrict yourself to natural animals? Why even restrict yourself to extinct animals? Let's go with something more imaginative, more creative, far more powerful and menacing. Dragons are amongst Transformers. We have had quite a few dragons over the years, but again, no one that's really iconic to the alt mode. You've got Double Cross in the Monster Bots. You've got Predaking and Transformers Prime, but no one that's really made a return. Like even characters that like even more characters like Scourge from Cybertron, who kind of apes the G1 name. So maybe Flame Convoy, Flame Prime if we bring him back. It really is Megatron from Beast Wars that accentuates being a dragon. It's the only character like that I can think of that, that turns into a dragon that could potentially come back over and over. We got a Double Cross, and I don't think we're in need of any other Double Cross besides that one. So this Megatron, yeah, I think the dragon's iconic for Beast Wars Megatron. Even if he didn't last that long in the show, it's a great alt mode for him. Great upgrade to the TRex too. And yeah, it just makes sense for Megatron all the way. Number 3 is another weird choice for this list, but hear me out, because if we think about Megatron's philosophy, so the reason Megatron has this gigantic arm cannon is because he literally found the biggest weapon he could feasibly carry and strapped it to his arm just to make himself that much of an imposing threat at all times. That's the idea behind Megatron. So the one time I feel like this was properly applied to actual Earth vehicles was ironically in a BotCon set, a BotCon Beast Wars set, no matter. Cybertron Defense Red Alert, the big missile truck as Megatron, I think is an inspired choice. Not only big and powerful as a vehicle, but it literally has the largest weapon you could feasibly carry on a ground-based vehicle. That feels like Megatron's persona. That feels like Megatron's MO. It is an alt mode that is really only iconic to Cybertron Red Alert and Double Dealer, neither of which are really all that high up on the character remembrance scale. This is definitely an alt mode I feel like could be shared around a lot more. And if Megatron wants to literally wield the biggest weapon he can possibly find, he could do worse than this. You know, beyond this, it's like maser cannons or something fictional. But, you know, a truck that can carry ICBM? Yeah, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense to me for Megatron. I'd love to see an original take on this. You know, something that where the rocket turns into his arm cannon. You know, or the rocket like opens up and fires massive energon blasts, you know. Things you can play with, right? So this, to me, lost opportunity. I think this is an inspired choice. And I'd love to see something done originally with it if anyone ever picks up on it like I have. At number 2, we're going with something that is also very, very familiar. We've seen it a lot on Megatron, but it makes complete and total sense for the character, and that is the spaceship. Whether it is a space fighter, cruiser, whatever kind of style of spaceship it takes on, Megatron as a Cybertronian ship makes a world of sense, because why would he hide himself? Megatron has no reason to hide. Megatron is here to conquer. Megatron is here to dominate. He cares not for your hiding. He's just here to take over. You know, and that's perfect. You know, we even have like a canonical explanation for it thanks to Earthspark. His Cybertronian modes are going to be more powerful than anything he could scan on Earth. Anything he would scan here would be a downgrade for Megatron. So to keep his alt mode that is space capable, likely heavily armed with futuristic technology, and far more comfortable and convenient for him, perfect sense. Absolute perfect sense. You know, when a Megatron doesn't feel the need to take an Earth mode, perfectly in character. I feel like that is a spot-on choice. There's one choice I like better, though. Among all of his alt modes, there is one alt mode that I think works best. It is one that he used once before, and I love the usage of it then, and we kind of have it again now in Earthspark. That is the VTOL. That is the Osprey-style helicopter. It is a big, menacing vehicle. It's an awesome-looking vehicle. It's a very, you know, as far as a helicopter style goes, it's a really intimidating look. Not to mention, you can custom, like, pretty much any weapon you want onto it, and it makes sense for Megatron. You want this to be a hovering gunship? That is possible. So, a big thing for me with number 2 and number 1 here is that in a lot of fictions where Megatron and the Decepticons cannot naturally fly, I don't see a reason why Megatron would give up his advantage of flight, right? So, flight is a huge advantage, and if someone like Starscream has it and he doesn't, that is a tactical fallacy. So I love alt modes where Megatron can fly. It makes sense. It makes sense to fly along with his Seekers into an attack. And the Osprey, the VTOL, whichever version of it you want to go with, works great. Highly maneuverable vehicle. You know, don't need the run up, don't need a whole lot of energy. Doesn't waste a whole lot of energy, I assume, for a Transformer. And there's a lot of room to wiggle and customize it too. I really, really like it as an alt mode. I think it's spot on for Megatron, also because it's so unique. Like, even now, as I sit down, I think one of the Ultra Pretenders, Skyhammer, was kind of a VTOL. Like, even as I sit down here, like, if I can come up with any Transformer that actually, like, is a proper VTOL. I don't mean thrust in his fans. I mean, like, proper VTOL. There is no one. It is animated Megatron and Earthspark Megatron. And I think that makes it a perfect choice. So, hey, there's a natural, standard, normal top 10 for you. Rather than a here's 10, that's the order I think they should go in. This is one of those videos where I fully expect people to disagree with me. That is fine. That's how opinion works. I'm going to have ideas that you are not, vice versa. Let me know in the comments below how close you think I came. Is there any alt mode that Megatron has had that I totally forgot about? Because admittedly, you know, I scanned TF Wiki to see if I was remembering them all. I think I did. I think it's a solid list. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. We might do this again for someone else at some point. And thank you for watching. I will see you next time. Guys, I am facing the most powerful enemy any YouTuber can face, the algorithm, and I need your help to defeat him. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Every time you do, we attack that algorithm and we drive it back until it can no longer defeat this channel. Thank you very much.